I don't know why Daddy is always so mad at me. I try hard to be a good girl. I always clean my room and brush my teeth and pray before dinner. But I can never make him happy. Some days he'll come home from work and have a look in his eye. Whenever Mommy sees that look, she sends me to my room and I don't come out until the next day. Sometimes when I come down, Mommy has bruises. But she always says she had an accident. She has a lot of accidents. I didn't know grown-ups can be clumsy like kids. Last month, I came downstairs and Mommy had bruises on her arms and a red mark on her face. I get when I'm nervous. She said it was an accident, which made sense because the night before, I'd heard Daddy yelling and a thump and Mommy crying after. I asked Mommy if Daddy had an accident too, and that's why he was so upset. She looked sad and said that sometimes Daddy gets frustrated, and that's why I have to stay in my room, but that he's a good daddy and he doesn't mean it. She said that we know he loves us because we always have food to eat and clothes to wear and he keeps us around even though he doesn't have to. I always thought daddies had to keep you around. She said the world can be a really hard place. I guess that's true sometimes. When I do bad at math or Jason Palmer makes fun of me in class, I get frustrated too. And she said that no matter what, I shouldn't tell anyone else about it. What happens at home is nobody else's business. I have to be a good girl and stay quiet. Tonight, me and Daddy are home alone. Daddy sees Mommy fell and hurt herself and had to go to the hospital. But she's been gone forever. I wish she'd come back. I'm in my room playing, leaving him alone like he said. When there's a loud thud on the door, I get scared and hide in the closet like Mommy always taught me. But I can still hear. There's loud yelling. Daddy doesn't sound happy, not like he ever does. But he sounds even more not happy than most times. Then there's a loud bang and then another one and the door slams. I can hear Daddy now. He sounds like he's in pain and he calls my name over and over, asking me to get help. I don't know what to do. His voice is getting quieter and he sounds like he really wants my help. Maybe I should go to the neighbors across the street. But then I remember what Mommy said and I stay in the closet and don't say a word. I'll show him. I can be quiet, I'm a good girl. They paid me in silver and rotted bread. Told me I'd do God's work. But the God that watched that night wasn't theirs. I was 12. The body was bloated, his tongue bitten off, skin jaundiced like old butter. They boiled down his fat in a blackened cauldron and folded it into cakes, shaped like angels. I gagged on each one, the bile curdling in my throat. Still I chewed, swallowed, wept. Then they rubbed ash into my eyes so I might see what I'd eaten. Not with sight, but with knowing. His sins flooded in like cold water. He'd flayed girls in the woods and wore their hair under his robes. He'd bred with pigs, thinking it holy. He poisoned the wells when denied a third wife. And now all that filth was mine. I was the vessel, the wastebasket, the soul toilet. I collapsed behind the pyre with guts cramping like a birth. Blood and shit came first, tarry and clotted. Then it slithered out, thick and wet, a black serpent slick with sin. It coiled around my spine like a second soul. Its voice was his voice, and it whispered, "Now you carry it." It never left. I grew into it. More bodies came. Rich lords with teeth like pearls. Whores strangled with rosaries. Priests with boy hands still stiff in death. I devoured them all. Cakes awful, marrow, eyes boiled in wine. Each one left a mark. One woman's breath had been so sour with lies they fermented in my gut. And I vomited bees that buzzed scripture backwards. One man was so cruel his fingernails grew inside me. I passed them for days, screaming as they tore my bowels. Every sin I took on etched itself into my bones. My spine twisted with burden. My skin grew papery and gray, tattoos of their crimes appearing without ink. Just raised scars in the shapes of screaming mouths and severed limbs. But I kept on, because the serpent promised me a crown. Not gold, not glory. Power. A throne made from every soul I absolved in the secret knowledge of hell's back door. One night I ate a king. His heart was baked into a pie with a crust of crushed relics and salt from beneath his wife's tongue. They buried his corpse beneath the altar, but I had his soul. The serpent howled with joy. That night it told me where God sleeps and how to choke him in his dreams. Now I eat not for coin, but for dominion. They bring me infants now, bastards and stillborns. They think it purifies them. They don't see the altar of teeth I've built beneath the floorboards. They don't hear the singing in my skull, but soon they will, 'cause I've tasted every sin man can make, and now I'm starving for what comes next. We're all born naked, I know, but I simply refuse to die naked. It was one of those rare times when I bared all. In the empty changing room at my college, I thought I was alone, so I undressed, packed my clothes away, and walked to the shower. Just as I was about to step in, that's when I felt it. A sharp, deep jab in the neck from a syringe. "I just killed you," whispers a creepy voice from behind me. My unclothed body instantly feels weak, and I limply crumple to the floor. "You've just been injected with a lethal, undetectable toxin," taunts the masked killer standing over me. "I've spent the entire semester killing people on campus, and you're my last victim. You have 3 minutes to live," is his final message before leaving. Me to my poisoned fate. Just like that, my life is over. Maybe my priorities are out of whack, I don't know. But instead of thinking about the loved ones I'll never see again, my biggest regrets in life, etc., I can only think of one thing. Whoever finds my body is gonna see me lying there, buck naked with my junk hanging out. That's what most mortifies me. I can't let it happen. As the chemical surges through my veins and my heartbeat begins to slow, I drag myself along the tiled floor to where I left my stuff. I'll have just enough strength left to make myself decent before losing consciousness forever. Instead, to my distress, I see that my clothing-filled backpack is nowhere to be found, racking my brain. I remember my classmates are always leaving articles of clothing lying around. Maybe I could nick something to cover myself with, even just a towel. I turn my fading vision to underneath the benches, scanning them for any dropped fabric. Jackpot. Someone has left behind an entire pile of clothes, complete with a t-shirt, hoodie, pants, socks, and trainers. Emboldened, I pull myself towards them. Weakening by the second, I only have moments left to get these clothes on. I dress faster than I ever have in my life. Using the last of my energy, I've done it. I've gone from nude to fully clothed. Now at least I can die with dignity. Except, I feel something sticky on my clothes. Oh fuck. Only now do I make out the bloodstains all over the clothing. I've put on my attacker's discarded clothes. Blood spattered from his past semester's victims. Horrified regret fills my body as the last drops of life exit it. I won't be remembered as that naked murder victim after all. I'll be remembered as that clothed serial murderer. I was working at the warehouse late one night. It was midnight and we were all in the break room on our break. I had an energy drink in my hand because I needed to stay awake for possibly the next 3 hours. Everyone was talking and laughing about. I lean against a chrome metal-framed shelf with rough black shelves. Normally it would have a ton of things on top of it, but it was completely empty. I didn't think much of it. I suddenly felt it massage my shoulder blades. I jumped. The room went quiet. "Yo, what happened? Everything okay?" one of my coworkers asked. "Yeah, all fine. I just thought I felt this shelf massage my back." I turned back to look at it, but nothing seemed off. "What do you mean?" asked another one. "You're definitely just trying to pull one over us." Another one exclaimed. "No, I genuinely felt it rub against my shoulder blades. Or at least I thought I did." Before anyone could say anything further, our boss walked in. "Right, everyone. We have another 22,000 pounds to get into the containers for tomorrow's deliveries. Let's see if we can get it done within the next 2 hours." As we walked back to work, we continued to laugh and joke about what happened. At around 2:10, everyone had started clocking out. We only had a few dozen more boxes to go, so I just said to my partner, "You go on ahead, I'll finish this up." "You sure?" he asked. "Yeah, I got it. You have a good weekend." So he clocked out and left, and I was the only one left in the warehouse. When I was finished with my container, I jumped down off the deck to go to the clock-in machine. As I walked over, I saw the lights of the break room, which were to be on at all times, flicker until they eventually went out completely. I started getting nervous, so I started heading to clock out a bit faster. I clocked out and began walking towards the door when I saw Alexa, our customer service person, through the window into the lobby. This was odd because she was supposed to be off over 10 hours ago. The lights in the lobby turned off completely, and the lights in the warehouse began to flicker. Adrenaline is rushing through my body from fear, and I run for the door to the lobby. The lobby door opens without my help, and I feel a gush of wind come across my face as I enter the lobby. The only light coming into the building now is through the windows of the lobby. From the streetlights outside, I see that it is pouring outside. I look towards the desk to see that Alexa is still there on her phone. "Alexa, what are you still doing here?" I asked, as I start turning my head back to look into the now completely dark warehouse. I hear a strike of lightning, and on the warehouse side of the door, I see it, the shelf from the break room. Fearfully, I think to myself, what? How can this be? I start walking backwards for the exit, before the front desk catches my eye because it turns out Alexa wasn't there. As I took my gaze off the shelf, it managed to make its way into the lobby. I run for it. As I get out into the pouring rain, I see there is not a single car in the parking lot, not even mine. I look back to the door. Now I guess it's just me and the shelf. In the 90s, I was a PP officer in Japan, where I often dealt with smaller cases and basic traffic violations. However, later in my career, Japan experienced a major economic crash, which led my department to focus more on welfare checks. While many of these checks involved finding people who had either died in their own filth or a man spiraling in his own self-pity, I fortunately only handled these situations a handful of times. But one case has stuck with me. We received a call for a welfare check on a mother and child. The call came from the child's father, who hadn't heard from his ex-wife or received any updates about his newborn daughter in weeks. I called our CGC caseworker, but they never followed up. He said, his voice brittle, sounding as if he were holding back a sob, "I'm worried. I need to know if my baby is okay." I reassured him that the mother was probably having trouble getting a phone, or was simply being stubborn. I asked for the address and the names of the mother and child. Hanai Inoue's file was interesting. Although she had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, the courts had ruled that their child, Ainu, should stay with the mother full-time, granting the father only limited visitation rights. Since there was no mention of any child abuse reports before or after the divorce, I believe that maybe the father was just too paranoid. I mean, sure, she has an illness, but that doesn't make her a bad mother. I arrived at the apartment complex. It looked rundown and tiny. I entered through the front, and the smell of mold and water damage reeked through the halls. Hanai lived on the 3rd floor. I entered the elevator and pressed the button. When I arrived, I noticed there was a row of coin lockers. You would usually find these near most train stations, but I guess the landlord wanted extra cash and had placed them there for people to rent. I counted the rooms as I walked by: Siwa 1, 0203, Disfribe, Cesor, and finally, apartment C05. I knocked on the harsh wood of the door, feeling like I could have broken it with a harder knock. "Yes?" A soft, hoarse voice came from behind the door. "Hello, ma'am. I'm Officer Kobayashi. I was called for a welfare check. Can you come out to talk?" She opened the door slowly. Hanai was a thin woman. Her hair looked unwashed, and her clothes appeared too big for her small frame. She looked up at me, leaning against the doorframe. "What do you want?" "Your ex-husband was worried about the safety of you and your daughter." "Can I come in?" I tried to look behind her so I could at least get a glimpse of the baby, hoping to ease not only my own mind, but the father's as well. The silence within the home felt strange, considering the baby was a newborn. I would have expected to hear something. She rolled her eyes before saying, "No, we're fine. And tell the bastard not to call again." She slammed the door in my face. I blinked in shock before sighing. She looked fine, and I couldn't see any signs of danger either. Although she looked thin, that wasn't a justification to barge in. I stood there for a few moments before heading back to the elevator. As I walked past the lockers, I heard a faint, soft cry. I stopped in my tracks. It sounded like a baby. I looked at the locker next to me, a small blue locker. The cry came from it again. I couldn't move. I mean, I must be hearing the cry from somewhere else. My thoughts were racing. I couldn't just not look inside. I had to look. My fingers slowly insert a coin. A loud click came from the door. I slowly opened the small locker door. I couldn't breathe. My throat felt like it was closing in on itself. A small newborn baby, wrapped in a small baby blue blanket, lay within the locker. her body thin and purple. The blanket was leaking brown sludge and maggots. I choked out a cry and tried to hold back the vomit. I reached for my walkie-talkie. But before I could, the woman lunged from behind me. She held me down, trying to bash my head into the tile below, her nails digging into my neck like pins into a cushion. I hit her with the side of my walkie-talkie hard, making sure she bled before putting my knee to her back. I struck her with the side of my walkie-talkie, the blow landing with a sickening force. Blood pooled beneath her, but I didn't stop. Pressing my knee into her back, making sure she stayed down, called for backup, barely hearing my own voice as it trembled through the static. I cuffed her, trying to stay focused, but all I could think about was the sound of my heart pounding in my chest, urging me to do something, anything, before it all fell apart. The others arrived and took her away for questioning. I stumbled outside, collapsing onto the curb, my hands shaking as I lit a cigarette. I inhaled deeply, but it did nothing to numb the ache gnawing at me. Where's my daughter? Where's my baby girl? The words tore out of me, desperate, broken. Please, sir, stand back. I recognized the voice instantly, but I couldn't bring myself to meet his gaze. I kept my eyes on the ground, the weight of the world pressing down on me. I knew deep down that I didn't need an answer.